Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for everybody joining us today. Saw a lot of you waiting at the door. We've got an exciting session with Joy, our favorite community all-star. Joy, thanks for being here. We'll just let everybody join. Just give us a couple minutes. And I do have a quick poll to start out with that you guys can answer while we wait for everybody to join up here. I have a couple polls here for you to answer as we go through. I see lots of you answering these polls. Thanks for your contributions. Just give everybody probably one more minute to join. You can go put in the chat where you guys are tuning in from. I'm in Las Vegas right now, so some of you may be here in Las Vegas. Some of you may be in a sunnier part of the world. It's been a little bit rainy and cold here lately, which is strange for us. In Reno, Nevada. It's close, but not close to me. You'd think it's close, but it's pretty far. Got a couple from Reno. Nobody in Las Vegas? Nobody from Vegas? That's okay. I'll represent for our Las Vegas people. All right, looks like we're getting some good results for these polls. Looks like a good amount of you are familiar with some of the things we're going to talk about today. I hope we can get some good tips. I'll just give everybody one more minute to join before we start up. Looks like we've got a good amount of you in here already. All right, well, welcome everyone to our community hosted event. Today we're going to be covering ELD log management tips with our community's own Joy Baylor. Joy is a top contributor to our community and the CEO of Telemax 411. This is going to be a very informative session, and we want everybody to have the opportunity to ask questions as we go through it. So we'll stop after each section. We'll have 3 sections. We'll stop for a brief Q&A after each section. Please ask these questions using the question function rather than the chat at any time during the presentation. It'll be open the whole time. But if you do ask them in the chat, we might miss them, so make sure you use the question function for that. And any questions we don't have time to get to, if we have a bunch of questions, we will definitely follow up with answers to those in our community later. Maybe next week, we'll have all those answers in there. And maybe you can ask some of those to me in person next week at Connect if you're going to be there. If you have any coworkers who are unable to attend, don't worry, this is recorded and you'll get a recording to this in your email as well as it will be posted in the community. So they can all watch this, no worries. Now, without further ado, let's welcome Joy onto our stage. Hey, Joy.
Hey, Ishi. Thanks for having me, and thanks everybody for joining us today. Can you all hear me okay? All right. I'm going to assume that's a yes. All right. So thanks, guys, for being here today. What I'm going to cover are 3 of the main things that I've observed over the last almost 8 years of helping people with their hours of service logs in MyGeotab. 3 of the main issues that I see fleets run into on a fairly regular basis, either things they're not aware of or just ways to manage stuff that may be useful. So I know there was a poll at the beginning here about your familiarity with hours of service log management. So Ishi, do we have some results in from that? Could you give me like the top 3 answers or something?
Yeah, so we had 34% said they're very familiar, understanding, troubleshooting well. 16% said they've learned some, but not fully familiar. And then another 16% can do most of the day-to-day operations. 18% is still learning the ropes, and then 12% is brand new to it.
Cool. All right, great. So we have some polls in here to make this a little more interactive. I'm hoping, guys, that you'll find some new things to take away, even if you are very familiar. And I'm going to try and make it as entertaining as possible as well. So we'll see. Anyway, before we get too far into this, I'm just going to very briefly splash this up here. This is the don't sue me clause. Just the information here is for demonstration purposes and not intended as legal advice. So just make sure you reach out to wherever your usual channel for legal advice is if you have any questions regarding anything that we've covered today. So one of the first things that I see people have issues with is managing unassigned driver logs. And now it sounds like most of you are very familiar with this. So for the few of you who may not yet be familiar, anytime a commercial motor vehicle is driven without a driver assigned, you're going to have unassigned driver logs. Now, there are two main ways to handle this. You annotate them or you assign them to a driver. You need to handle these, you need to have them accounted for in one of these two ways, or else they're going to show up as not managed properly, either if a driver has a roadside inspection, or if you have an actual DOT audit where they ask for, the previous 6 months worth of logs, and they're just in your system and not actually handled. So the two ways we can do this are we're going to go over here to compliance and HOS and unidentified driving. And if you guys are not familiar with this, this is a relatively new section of MyGeotab that's been rolled out. Typically, if you do this, you're going to have these, you should have someone managing these on a regular basis, like within every 24 hours roughly. So you'd probably pick today or yesterday. In this case, since it's my demo database and I don't have a whole fleet running, I'm going to choose this month. Then we've got assets. I'm going to select all assets so that we can make sure all of our unassigned logs are managed. And then we'll hit apply changes. All right, so here I've got a list of some different unassigned logs with unidentified driving, and some of them have been handled and some of them have not. So these are sorted by truck and then by day. So like these are two for the same day, these ones are from a previous day. And as you can see, we've got these annotations over here. So the ones that already have annotations, they don't need to be, they're fine, they're already handled. And Geotab has this nice feature here with a filter, and we can click that. And so if we're only trying to find the ones without annotations that still need to be dealt with, we'll click without annotations and hit apply changes. All right. So I'm going to scroll down here to today because I have a yard move. If you're not sure if this is a yard move, and now I am because I happen to drive the vehicle, but if you're not certain, there's this map button here, and you can actually click this, and this is a cool feature. You can see where the vehicle drove, and it's actually just pulling up a little pop-up here, and it's not taking you to the map or anything. So you can open it in trips history, or you can just close this with the button here or the X up here. So we know, okay, we've looked at it, we know it's a yard move. We can scroll over, we can see who our previous driver was. And if we hit edit, in this case, we know it was a yard tech, so we don't have to assign a driver, and we'll just annotate it properly. So yeah, something like that, just something clear. And we'll hit save. And now that I've done that, that log has actually disappeared because I still have the filter on so that it's only showing anything without annotations. And now I can see I only have these 5 logs left to manage that have still not been taken care of. The other way you can do this then is to assign these to a driver. And you could do the individual version that I just showed you, or what you can do is we can hit select none up here and then select individual. And what that does is open up it shows these little check boxes. And you can do this on a granular level of just one log at a time. Or if you've got multiple trips in a day, you can just click the day to select the whole thing. Once that's been selected, you can hit edit selected up here. Then you can select your driver and put in an annotation. In this case, we'll say that the driver's tablet was broken. All right. Now, here's another really neat feature that Geotab has put in, and it's the preview logs. And this is pretty cool. So if I click this, it's actually going to show me this driver's logs for the day that I'm assigning these. So we've got an off-duty log up here, and then we've got these parts in green. Those are the ones that we're adding. So we're adding this really long drive status, and then a short on status, and then a really long drive status. And then we've got this on status that just keeps going. Now, the reason why the on status keeps going is because the driver never manually put in an off-duty log. If his tablet wasn't available, then that makes sense. So what we're going to do is we are going to assign this to this driver. And then fortunately, the next section, we're going to actually talk about how to add those off logs in for cases where the driver has been kept on duty all night. So we'll just hit back. Everything else looks good here. And we'll hit Save Changes. All right. And our changes have been saved. Now, that's it as far as how to handle unidentified driving. That is, you either put in an annotation or you assign it to a driver. Do we have any questions about any of that part of it, Ishi?
Awesome. Thanks for that, Joy. That was a great presentation. We did have a couple questions come in. Feel free to continue putting those questions in the Q&A portion. And I have a couple to ask you today. So on this topic, somebody asked, will unassigned logs and annotations still show up during roadside inspection for the next driver to drive the truck?
If they are, that is a great question. If they are not annotated, I know they show up. If they are annotated, I'm actually not sure if they get sent still. They may, just because they're assigned to the truck and they're within that particular period of time that's being asked. My guess is yes. But Ishi, if we can find out who that was, if you can record that, we can follow up with a certainty either in the Geotab, probably in the Geotab community, just to make sure everybody knows the answer there.
Yeah, we'll follow up with a double check on that. I believe that they do, though. I believe they do, but
yeah,
we'll make sure we get the double check on that one. All right, let's see what other questions we have here. We do have a few questions that are regarding other things. We'll make sure we answer these questions in the community. I just want to try to stay on topic for right now as much as we can. So Steve asks if you know if there's an alert that it can occur for an unidentified log, or is it necessary to proactively search through the identified driving?
If there's an alert. So as far as being able to add a rule, there are not currently rules available to be able to show that there's unidentified driving. As far as being able to, you could technically create a custom report that would show unidentified driving logs, and you could set that to run conditionally and essentially check every so often, like say every hour that report checks for unidentified logs, and if there are any in the report, it will send you a list of them, something like that. Now that would be a custom report. It wouldn't be something that you could just turn on within Geotab. So my recommendation there would be talk with your reseller, see if they offer any report customization services as part of your Geotab ELD subscription. And if they do, great. Or if you're familiar with Excel and you can play with it, you can do that. And otherwise, hit up a consultant or somebody who'd be able to build that for you.
Awesome. Thanks for those answers. Let's see. I'll try to get one more. Let's see if we can get another one here. Okay, so this one is for the show yard move feature. Does the default yard movement rule need to be enabled, or can a custom rule be set up to include multiple zone types?
That is a great question. I have not seen the ability to add a custom zone type, and I'm still working on getting that to actually work properly. So that's another one I'm happy to follow up with. And I'm going to show my my contact information at the end of this webinar. And if you guys have any questions and want to reach out to me directly, I'm happy to talk about chasing them down for you and everything.
Awesome.
Yeah, I actually was testing that functionality shortly before this, and I'm still like, it's worked, I think, in the past, but it's a little bit. I'm actually going to ask somebody at Geotab Connect next week. I'm going to write this down, and See
And
if
we
I
did
can
have
find someone
somebody
at Geotab Connect to discuss.
we did have somebody in the chat said that they set it up that it only works with the default rule, not with custom rules. That when you press the show
Yeah.
yard,
Oh, perfect.
somebody else was
That,
saying that they did. Yep.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, I have another poll. Most of you guys answered this poll already, but I'll show this one on the screen of another poll just to make sure that you guys see this poll. If you guys want to answer this poll, if you haven't got a chance to answer this poll yet, we'll just next poll and then we will jump into our next section with Joy.
Yeah, that's the poll on how people handle log management, Ishi. Yeah.
Yep, how they typically do if drivers normally do it, or if the admins do it, if they do a combination of the two. We're just curious to see how you guys at home, how you guys handle those at your companies.
Yeah, that's actually, you guys didn't know it, but this is a bit of a choose your own adventure sort of demonstration today, because I'll tailor things a little bit based on that. Ishi, what are the current results for that right now?
Yeah, so a lot of people are saying that both drivers and admins are trained to do this. Most
Okay.
people do just have admins do this, drivers just accept the changes. But a lot of people are saying that both are actually trained to do it. Whether or not they actually let them do it may be a different story.
Okay, all right. Then what I'm going to do here, guys, is so I'm going to go through the adding the offlog section, and I'm going to pull up a little bit of the Geotab Drive app and explain what this looks like from the driver's perspective, both when the admins make those changes and if the drivers make those changes, just to give you a little bit of a visual for anybody who's not already familiar. All right. So the next section that I'm going to get into here is adding off-duty logs. This can be, for example, like we just saw, where we assigned that driver the driving time that he had, and now we've got this really long on-duty log because we hadn't gotten to add an off-duty log. It can also be in cases where a driver if a yard tech moves the vehicle and the driver forgot to disassociate himself completely from the vehicle, that would be an example as well. So let's go under compliance again, and then HOS, and this time we're going to logs. And here we're going to go for this month, and we'll select that driver that we just used, that we just assigned that time to. So we'll hit apply changes, and we'll scroll down. Okay, and here we can see the time that we assigned and that really long on duty log that goes for well over 24 hours. So we're going to want to take care of that. So first of all, when a driver gets this is outlined in yellow. It's showing that he hasn't accepted that change yet. So we're going to have him only have to do this once. So we'll just add an off-duty log from here. Now, we know, for example, the driver went off duty at exactly 7 p.m. So all you do is you make sure you know the date and the time. So this will be Saturday the 15th, and the time is 7 p.m. And we'll hit add up at the top, and then we'll click date, and we'll select Saturday the 15th. We'll change the time to 7 p.m. We'll hit done, and then we'll scroll to the bottom and make sure we hit that annotation properly. And this is how you add any kind of a log. In this case, I'm adding an off log, but you can change the duty status if you need to. So yeah, something like that. All right, and then you scroll back up to the top and you hit save. We do need a vehicle selected. So in this case, it's no vehicle because the driver was going off duty. We'll hit save. This is just telling us that the driver needs to accept those logs before they actually register. And of course, that's fine. We'll hit OK. And if we scroll down, we can see there still is no change. And that's because the driver needs to make that change. So what I'm going to do is get a black background so that it's easier to see. I'm going to pull up the desktop version of the Geotab Drive app for you. And we can either click HOS down here or here. This is, of course, what the driver has to do. And then logs. And we can see the review requested edits show up here. So the driver would just tap that, and we can see that the February 15th is the day that there are requested edits that need to be reviewed. So we'll click that. and the driver can look, okay, so this is that on-duty log that, yeah, here we go. So the driver would take a look at all of these and see, okay, yes, I was driving, I took a break here, I was driving again, and I did go off duty at 7 p.m. And then the driver can just click accept and verify and then agree. And now everything there is good. And we can then switch over to that admin view again and refresh. And if we scroll down, we'll see that, okay, now all those changes we made have actually gone through. For anyone who has the drivers running this, I'll just very briefly cover, if the driver were doing this himself, instead of doing the steps of reviewing the admin edits, he'd just add that off log himself. So he'd hit add log, make sure it's on off, change the time to 7 p.m. We're just recreating the exact one we did as an admin and hit done, and then add an annotation and hit add. And then that would do the exact same thing. So those are the steps for both admins and drivers, how to do that. All right. So there you go. That's how you add a log, both as an admin and a driver. All right, do we have any questions on those?
All right, thanks for that presentation. That was very thorough and very well. Let's see. We did have quite a few questions. I will try to save some of our more off-topic or more in-depth questions to be reviewed after this, and we'll follow up with you with those answers in the community. But we did have some. So somebody's asking, if the modification is more than 14 days old, how will the drivers accept that?
That's a great question. I believe that at that point, the driver... Okay, so there are a couple of things here. I believe at that point to remain compliant, and again, make sure you check with your local FMCSA representative or something, but I believe at that point you actually have to print the logs, which you would choose here, and have the driver come in and sign a physical copy of the changes. In addition, you may be able to have the driver actually come in and log into MyGeotab and make those changes from there. That's one you'd have to test out. But the driver, I believe, should have enough visibility that he would be able to log in, I assume with some kind of administrator's supervision, into MyGeotab and then look up a further date range. Now, if that one is permitted, that I don't know, and I would again check, but I think from a technical perspective, he may be able to log in and make those changes on the MyGeotab side. But they're supposed to certify the logs every 14 days, and anything that hasn't been certified, they do need to print and sign manually, and you would have to keep those physical copies on hand for the next 6 months.
Awesome.
Great
Thanks for that
question.
Yeah, that one comes up if there's edits that have been done a long time ago.
Yeah.
So here's another question. Is there a way to see if somebody has declined an edit, where they say, no, this was not me that did this, or they don't agree with it?
Well, let's I haven't seen that, but let's test it real quick. We can do this live. So this will be fun. I've not done a live demo of one of these before, but let's try. All right, so let's say today at 10 a.m. there was supposed to be an on log for this driver in this truck, and driver was on duty. All right, so we'll save that, and we will go over to the driver's hours of service one. We'll refresh to find those added logs. All right, let's double check. All right, it went through here. It has not yet gone through on the Geotab Drive side. All right, if it takes too long, we might have to skip it, but we'll, boy, if we can get you an answer real quick, that would be cool. Let's double check. That is the right driver. We do have that log. We'll give this 10 more seconds to try and load for us. You know what? Real quick, this will be okay. I can log out and we'll do this. All right. Whoever asked the question, thanks for the opportunity to do some impromptu question answering for you. Here, we'll minimize that so you guys can see this better, hopefully. Okay, we'll go back to HOS and logs. There we go. Okay, so we'll click on this individual log. We'll hit reject. And we'll take a look at the admin side and see what it does. Okay, so it no longer has the thing outlined in yellow. And if we click view logs, that's all we see. So as far as this goes, I'm not sure in the hours of service section, there may be something, for example, in the audit log. Yeah, so we can see the user logged in, skipped the verification, and rejected. Okay, so I think the only way to check this would be to look for this rejected state of the log. It tells us what that log was and everything. So probably you would need a custom MyGeotab report of the audit log to scan for any rejected hours of service logs under the edit HOS log option, that particular type of log. Great question. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Any
thanks for
sorry,
doing that.
before
I'll do one more question, a good one. But this does an admin have to confirm or verify an HOS change made if a driver does a change, like they have to do if an admin makes a change for them?
Good question. So no, an admin does not have to change it. And the reason for that is because ultimately, according to the hours of service mandate, the drivers are actually responsible for their logs individually.
Awesome. Great
All
questions.
right.
Thanks for answering those questions so well. I've got another poll that I'll show on stream. A lot of you have answered this one, but I just will give you an option to answer this poll real quick. This is just asking if you have used the ignore feature when managing your logs, or if you've even heard of this feature before. So I'll give you a second if you didn't get a chance to answer this poll to put in your answers. It looks like about 50-50. There's about 30% of you who haven't heard of this feature before, but if you have heard of it, some of you have been using it. A lot of you, 38%, have been using it, so some of you may have experience with this already.
Cool.
Awesome. I'll let you take it away, Joy.
Thanks. All right. Then, all right, for those of you who have been using the ignored feature, maybe some of this will be new, maybe it won't. And for the rest of you, I hope you find this interesting. All right, so the ignored feature. This is a wonderful feature if you understand what it is for, what it is not for, and how to use it properly. So I have created a visual to help you guys to understand this, and here it is. So if you're using the ignored feature, it is not to hide logs from the DOT. So none of the logs that you ignore will be, every single one of the logs that you ignore is still going to send through in its original state to the DOT. The purpose of this is to reset your driver's timers. So when you use the ignored feature, the main and absolute most important thing is that you use the annotation feature super well. So you want to make sure when you annotate, it is abundantly clear if your driver gets pulled over for a roadside check, what that annotation is. And if you were to get audited in one of those cases where you'd have to send 6 months of logs to the DOT, make sure those annotations actually explain why these logs don't count or shouldn't count towards your driver's time, because that's what the DOT is going to be looking for compliance. The ignored feature itself is purely to reset your driver's timers. So let's say he's got a 34-hour reset and he forgot to log out of his truck and a yard tech moved the vehicle around the yard for some maintenance over the weekend. And now all of a sudden he's got these drive and on logs that shouldn't be messing up his timers, but they are. And when he goes to log in, now all of his timers are off and it says he's completely out of drive time. So the ignored feature is to fix that particular type of issue, not to hide logs. So in order to do this, there are two main ways you can do them. You can ignore logs individually on a one-on-one basis or do them in bulk. So we'll go to compliance, we'll go to hours of service, we'll go to logs. We will look up a driver who actually was supposed to be on a 34-hour reset and today had some logs messed up. So date period's already good. Drivers selected. We'll hit OK, apply changes. Okay, so this driver was supposed to be in the middle of a 34-hour reset. It's not happening because the techs were moving this stuff. So we'll hit view logs. And here we'll choose, for example, we'll click on this one. So we're going to ignore this individual log here. And we'll scroll down. And we will annotate this. Remember, that's the important part. This is the part that the inspecting officers are going to see for compliance. So this was a yard move by a technician. And we'll hit yes for ignore. And then we'll scroll up to the top and hit save. And now you can see this is grayed out as if it were in as if it were an off log, but it is still a drive log. Now we've got more of these and I'm going to show you how to annotate these in bulk, but just real quick, I want to show you the driver's time available. So this is the cycle time the driver has, the 14 hours. We've got on duty time and everything else. What we're going to do here is, so this is how much time has passed. So what we're going to do here then is I'm going to update these in bulk and we'll see how this affects the cycle time overall. So now what we'll do is we'll scroll back up to the top again and choose the select individual. And this should look familiar because it's pretty similar to how we managed the other stuff previously with those unassigned logs. But in this case, we're doing this over here. They show up on the right. So we'll click this one. And as you can see, it's giving us drive and on log pairs, and that's fine. We already ignored this one, so we're just going to ignore it again. And then we'll select this drive and on log pair and this one. And then we'll hit edit selected HOS logs up at the top. All right, so we're not changing the status or the driver or anything. We are simply adding that annotation. All right, and then we're going to, under ignore, we'll hit replace with. And the default is yes, so we'll just leave that. And then we'll hit save at the top. And what this is going to do is it's applying this to all of those logs. We'll hit accept. We'll hit accept for that. And now you can see all of these logs are ignored. And if we scroll up, of course, they're still here, but the driver has more time than he did previously, or I think he did anyway. Anyway, the driver does not have to accept ignored logs. Those will automatically just be applied. And now his timer should be reset, so he's good to go for going forward. And of course, these totals will remain the same because these are what the DOT is going to see. They will still see those totals, but at least for the sake of his timers in Geotab Drive, he'll have that full reset. All right, that's it for that. Any questions on that one, Ishi?
Thanks for showing us all that, Joy. I did have a question. Somebody asking if you could show where the ignore option is when you go to the Geotab Drive app and a driver is able to ignore their own logs if you have a driver with the clearance for that. If you can just show that screen, you have to go to logs and show where it is.
Well, let's take a look, because I had heard at one point that was going to be available, but I'm not certain that it is.
Depends on if you have the clearance for it on that driver. You may not have the clearance for it on that driver.
Yeah, we'll double check that. All right, so if the driver has permission for that, let's take a look. That would be All right, so this driver does not have that option. So what I'm going to do here is go to users and drivers, and we'll hit clearances. And we're going to just do all of this on the fly, because why not? All right, so we'll add a subclearance. We'll call this drive app user with ignore. And there we go. That's it. We just need that clearance there. We'll hit save. We'll go back to that particular driver that I currently have logged in. If I can find them, yep. And we'll apply that clearance. You guys are getting all kinds of bonus tutorial today. So, all right, drive app user with ignore. We'll scroll up and hit save. And now we'll go back to the drive app. We'll log out so that the driver, so that clearance gets applied. And then we'll log back in and take a look and show you exactly where that is. Okay. Yep, so we'll go to HOS and logs, and we'll find a day that we actually had some logs. We'll take those big driver logs that we had before, and let's say this on-duty one was actually part of a break. So we'll click that, and we'll scroll down, and now you have the ignore this log feature. We'll hit yes. We definitely want to add an annotation. This was actually an off break, and hit save. And we'll just confirm that, yes, we do want to do that ignore. And as you can see here, it tells them that this excludes 15 minutes worth of logs that still appear on the roadside checks. There you go.
I think you
Any
answered
other questions, Ishi?
Yeah, I think that answered some of the other questions about how you give them the ability. You just make them the custom clearance, just like Joy showed, and you can have that ability, but it is not in there by default.
Yep. Just remember.
Yeah. Some of the comments in chat, you guys know why this isn't on default for drivers. Some of the conversation in the chat, you guys are well aware of how difficult this would be if drivers just were always ignoring logs. All right. Let's see if we have any other questions. I know there are lots of other questions in here that may be unrelated. Some of them kind of border on legal advice. That's why I don't really want to answer them here. We'll do our best to answer those in the community, and then refer you to the FMCSA when is applicable. And yeah, so I think that's all we have. I'll give you guys another minute if there's any other questions that you have about just using this feature. Like I said, I want to stay away from trying to give legal advice here, because it is kind of a touchy subject, as you can imagine, with ignoring some of the logs.
I mean, I put up the disclaimer, so I'm happy to at least unofficially take anything if you'd be interested. If there's anything you think people would benefit from there.
Yeah, let's see if I can find any of these. Some of them just like
any borderline.
If you want to talk to this one, can this be used to handle when a DOT and non-DOT compliant logs are combined together on one driver's logs?
So okay, so like if you've got a Ford F-150 that hauls a trailer, so it's CMV part of the time and not a CMV another part of the time. My thought on that is probably not, and the reason for that is because whoever's driving is still supposed to be in an on-duty status. So you might be able to use it for the drive logs, so that you're not losing the drive time. But I do believe you would need to at least keep the on logs the way they are, because if somebody's driving, they're still supposed to be registered as on duty for that time. That's my totally not legal advice guess.
Awesome. All right, and one last quick one. Can you just show us real quick where you go to print out logs when you're asked to print 6 months worth of logs? Can you show us where you find that?
Yeah. So that's going to be under compliance, HOS. You're going to hit logs, and you're going to select your driver. And, let's say it's for this month. We'll hit apply changes. You can change that to your 6 months if you need to. And then you can hit print here. And that's going to show you a print preview. It's going to give you a bunch of information. Do keep in mind, this is for, technically this one I believe is more for your eyes only, because I believe violations are still going to show up on this print version. When you are audited and you have to transfer logs, those 6 months of logs, you'd actually click the transfer button. You're going to choose your custom of the previous 6 months, or we'll just say last month here, and you can then transfer by either driver or vehicle. And you can select a number of them. They don't all, I believe it's 5 drivers total. And then you would choose either email or web services, whichever they prefer. The DOT has said that web services is typically faster, so email is more of a backup version. And then you would run you'd put a custom code in there. This is just a test. And then you would hit send. Now I'm not going to hit send because this is not just that they would receive it anyway, but then you just hit send. So that's actually where, if they do request that, where you would send this stuff electronically. And then you can print if as a kind of backup option if needed, or in the case if your driver doesn't sign off on his logs in the appropriate amount of time, that 2 weeks.
Awesome. Thanks for showing us that there, Joy. And thanks for, everything that you shared with us today. I think we all learned something new or got a refresher on some things that we needed a refresher on. I appreciate your time here with us today, Joy.
Yeah, thanks everybody. If you have any questions we didn't get to, please do ask them in the community. Also, your other line of defense, of course, is your reseller. So reach out to them. You can find their information under support and contact information in MyGeotab. And then, of course, if you need any additional help or you'd like custom reports, anything that your reseller or Geotab does not do, please feel free to use my information and hit me up to discuss working with me, because I'm a freelance Geotab consultant and would be happy to talk. So thanks again for everybody's time, and we'll see you around.
Awesome. Thanks, Joy. And thank you everybody for coming to this community hosted event. Keep your eyes out for our next event. Our next event is going to be next week. If any of you are coming to connect, come by the booth, come say hi to me, come ask me some tough questions, come say hi to Joy. She'll be at Connect as well. And then our next virtual event is going to be the Road Ahead in March, on March 20th. So look for the registration email going out in the next few weeks for that. And I look forward to seeing you all at Connect and seeing you in the community. Have a great day, everybody.